What's up, fantasy champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now, with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network. Do you like the Oakland A's? Are you a fan of the Golden Knights? Do you love the Los Angeles Chargers? Well then, my friend, you're in the right place. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show with your host, Jake the Snake Silva, brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back again on a Wednesday night. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show. Wherever and however you may be watching and listening, we are live in the 702 on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and of course, Twitch is where you can like and follow me on all social media platforms. Also, go online to the spotlightsportsnetwork.com. We've got lots of merchandises here for you guys. So definitely gear up and rep for your favorite shows and your favorite hosts on the one network that's got you covered on all sports. That is the Spotlight Sports Network. I'm so happy to be here with all of you guys. I hope all of you guys are having a great night. Man, what a week it has been in the NFL. And it's just been a wild one. We had football all week long. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then we got an upcoming matchup tomorrow. And I'm going to touch upon that here in just a moment. I'll give at least a little bit of my prime prediction for tomorrow. You can even check it on my social media platform as well, because I'll be putting it on stories. I'll be putting it on posts. So you guys definitely want to stay tuned for that. All right, let's shift to this. I want to talk about what happened in last night's game. So the Baltimore Ravens ended up playing the Dallas Cowboys, and the Ravens and Lamar Jackson come away with the win. Pretty, and especially with Lamar Jackson with one practice, he looked great. He looked like himself. And of course, Dallas, they look like an absolute tire fire. But here's the one thing I want to discuss with what I have felt about the Baltimore Ravens this season. Because this is a good team. There's no denying it. The defense, it's like there's no holes in their defense. Offenses, they can run the football. Lamar Jackson has proven he can throw. But the question is to be said, how do they really generate their offenses on passing? We know Lamar can throw. But the problem is they're missing an over-the-top receiver. Let me just tell you this, and this is how I felt about Lamar Jackson. I felt like Lamar Jackson has become one-dimensional because he's quick on his feet, knows how to get out of the pocket, knows how to go and run for yards. That's what we've known about Lamar Jackson for the last couple of years, right? Since his rookie season in 2018, his MVP season in 2019, and here we are in 2020, and the Ravens right now are trying to fight for a playoff spot. But this is the thing about Lamar Jackson. He's got great legs, and he can throw a football. Okay, let's just narrow it out there. He can throw a football. The problem with Baltimore this year, they have no over-the-top wide receiver, which has been one of their biggest holes in the offense. Okay, you could look at every single target that Lamar throws to. Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown, And he's got so many other different weapons. And then just later on, we just ended up finding out about Des Bryant, that he was tested positive for COVID and then left. Said he was done, putting his cleats up. They pull him out of warm-ups and in practice, and now he's done. He's officially retired. But Lamar Jackson does not have a legit over-the-top receiver. And you know what's funny is that there is at least one guy I can think of. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But here's the thing about Lamar. We all like to think we're bailing on Lamar. I'm not bailing on him because I think he is an interesting talent. A talent that is, you can't find that on the market. You can't find that anywhere. Okay, we love to talk about Patrick Mahomes. We love to talk about Josh Allen. We love to talk about Justin Herbert. But Lamar Jackson is a talent that you can't find on the market. It's hard to find. And Greg Roman, his offensive coordinator, who's worked with Colin Kaepernick in the past, has said a lot of great things about Lamar and the type of talent he is. The issue, he has no over-the-top receiver, but people have to realize, when Lamar is a starter, he's 25-7 since being a starter in this league. You could think about the 14-2 season he had a year ago. You could think about the 8-8 season. He only played for at least a couple of games, but he was winning them. The question is left to be said is he capable of winning a playoff game? That's yet to be said because he's already had 2 attempts, and he lost to the Chargers and he lost to the Titans. And both of them who showed a lot of physicality, and both of them who were able to stop the runs. And Lamar Jackson, in situations like that, and even as a franchise quarterback, you have to adjust mid-game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The second you become one-dimensional, you're trapped. You're done. Defenses will figure you out in a heartbeat. But Lamar Jackson, since being a starter in this league, has been 25-7. He's a really good quarterback. I can't say he's a great quarterback, but he's a really good quarterback. Baltimore took a risk at him in the draft, and it's worked out well. Why? Because he's got Greg Roman. He's got John Harbaugh. He's got really good coaches around him. And that's what's actually been a really good thing for Lamar Jackson over the years. And listen, I know what people are going to end up saying. Well, Jake, did you see that Trace McSorley kid? I mean, he's got a heck of an arm. He can throw it downfield. That's not the point, though. I like Trace McSorley. I thought he was a really interesting quarterback. I'd like to read a little bit more about him. But here's the issue. You can't rely on Marquise Brown and other receivers who cannot jump over the top. Okay, that's the problem with Baltimore. The problem was never their defense. Their defense is loaded. Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, Calais Campbell, Matt Judon. Their defense is loaded, and it's ridiculous. That's not their problem. I mean, I understand they took Patrick Queen, the linebacker from LSU, but that was not their problem. I couldn't even find one hole in that defense. I just felt like that their problems has always been an over-the-top receiver. I keep saying this about Baltimore going and getting one. They had an opportunity. They could have gotten Justin Jefferson. They could have rolled the dice on Jalen Reagor, or they could have taken Brandon Ayuk. Either one of them. Because this team needs an over-the-top receiver. They need a guy with size, length, hands, a guy that's willing to catch any one of Lamar Jackson's throws that may seem like it's overthrown. We've been seeing this a bunch of times. Why do you think Mark Andrews is his most reliable target? Because he knows he doesn't have a receiver that he could throw over the top, that he could catch some of those high-thrown balls. And that's the reason why Baltimore sits at where they are. It's not all Lamar Jackson. I mean, Lamar Jackson's a really good kid. He can throw, he can run, he can do all these things. But when Baltimore doesn't have an over-the-top receiver, you're limited. And that's why they need to fix it. There's no holes in that defense. The defense plays really good. So I think if they get an over-the-top receiver, I mean, hell, they were playing against Dallas. You could always make a phone call to Jerry and inquire about Michael Gallup if you really want to. But if they don't figure this thing out right, lots of people are going to continuously criticize Lamar and his throwing abilities and his targets and all this other stuff, and I'm getting sick of it. All right, so let's go to now the next door neighbor in the AFC North, and a team who we've picked on for so long because they're so irrelevant. They're a dumpster fire. They have never been good over the years, and it has just been terrible. Well, right now it doesn't seem to be that way. And this is actually a very good adjustment. This has been a great adjustment year. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the Cleveland Browns. I'm not ranting and raving right now, okay? So any of them that are in the chats or in the views, who you guys are diehard Cleveland Browns fans, you're popping champagnes and you got your balloons and all that. Hold the brakes for a second. This is the first time Cleveland is ever having a winning season, and I'm liking it. I think it's great. But here's the deal. There wasn't anybody that I can think of that have been an impactful team coming out of Cleveland since the Jim Brown years. That's every time we refer the Cleveland Browns, we always refer to the Jim Brown years because, well, Jim Brown's a legend, knew how to run the football, and was very impactful for the team. Since then, they had been a competitive team, but they were not quite the competitive team that can win a Super Bowl. And since then, they became irrelevant for years. And we know how tough their division is. I mean, you're talking about Pittsburgh, you're talking about Baltimore, Cincinnati. Come on. I love Joe Burrow, but I don't trust the organization. Cleveland did a lot of things right this year. They got rid of a coach who I had no idea about. There was no resume of him coaching, whether in high school or he seemed to have coached at Pee Wee or something like that, and then goes and gets a job as a head coach or as a coordinator. Freddie Kitchens was terrible. They got rid of him. They decided to go with the grown-up in Kevin Stefanski, one of the offensive coordinators from Minnesota. And all throughout this year, he's been doing nothing but studying Cleveland's problems. And it took him a little bit of time because, think about it, you had no practices, no OTAs, no preseason. You never had any of that through the start of the season. So that's what's difficult. Okay, you had 4 or 5 games, but eventually he got it back up and running because he had to learn about some of the limitations, the struggles, what is going wrong with Cleveland. I think you got to give Kevin Stefanski, honestly, a nomination for Coach of the Year. He has really transformed this team. He's transformed what this team, we all in America have been hoping this for Cleveland. We've been hoping for this. We were not downgrading them. We're not, beating them to a pulp or, burying their heads in the sand. We wanted Cleveland to succeed because I think in 2017, when they made the draft picks and they made the changes to the environment and what this team really should be about, I was excited for it. And of course, there were a lot of different dramas from the ownership to John Dorsey to, Freddie Kitchens. It was a hell of a nightmare. And then, of course, the trading of OBJ. But Cleveland right now is seriously kicking ass. And I'll tell you this. This is a much better version of Baker Mayfield than I've ever seen. Baker, I want more of that. I want more of what just happened this past Sunday. I want more of that. Baker Mayfield, 4 touchdowns, no picks. And you're talking about a Tennessee Titans team where they just torched the defense. They stopped the run. They limited the run. They did give up some points to Tennessee, but they torched that defense. And Mike Vrabel is a hell of a coach who is very defensive-minded and is not easy to play against. That game there felt like a playoff game. And kudos to Cleveland for coming away with the win. But let's not get overexcited. They're only 9-3, but they are a very competitive team. I guarantee you right now, because the next couple of weeks, they got to face Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, I'll be honest with you, they ain't ready for that. They are not ready for what Cleveland's about to bring. Now, mind you this, they're without OBJ, and I think they're better off without him because it's too much pressure. You're trying too hard to balance both him and Jarvis Landry and Austin Hooper and David Njoku. There's so many mouths to feed in the offense. But here's what Kevin Stefanski's done right. He's limited the amount of times that Baker has to throw, and he's utilized a lot more in the run game with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and it seems to work. And the defense is getting better. So this Cleveland team right now is very interesting, but I am very impressed. Kevin Stefanski deserves a nomination for Coach of the Year. I think he's really stepped up in a big way. A guy who is an offensive coordinating mind, who has put Baker in his place. He's limited his throws, and Baker seems to get it. I think by the end of the night, I think you'll see in my social media, I may just follow Baker Mayfield. I love this version of him. I think this is much better. This is tightened up. And now I think we're starting to see a better version of Baker Mayfield. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but if I see more weeks, if I see the next 4 weeks of a performance like that, you better watch out, AFC North. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how Cleveland, weighs this out. But I'm loving this version of Cleveland. I think they've done such a great job, and hopefully they finish strong, because I think at that point, Cleveland and Baker Mayfield is capable of winning a playoff game. Very, very impressed. Coming up next, I'm going to tell you this. Pittsburgh, they're not that intimidating of a team. They're not that intimidating of a team. There are a few takeaways that Washington was able to stop them at. And Pittsburgh has not been great in a couple of categories. That's going to hurt them in the long run in the playoffs if they don't get this right. And I'm going to explain what those are coming up next here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. So for all of you guys who are big-time fanatics and fans of the Snake Sports Talk Show, and you guys want to end up repping your gear and showing your support and your love for the show, definitely go to the SpotlightSportsNetwork.com and go into the merchandise section. We've got so much gear. We've got hats, we've got t-shirts, we've got sweaters, we've got mugs, phone cases. We got them all here on the SpotlightSportsNetwork.com/merchandise. And when you go through, it'll send you right to Spreadshirt. So definitely check it out and get and rep your gear here today. So there's one team that I really do want to hold accountable from here, because, they seem like they were such an intimidating team at 11-1. And they're like, oh, man, ain't nobody going to stop Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, their defense, that's Steel Curtain, man. It's awesome. And Big Ben, he's having a heck of a year. Big whoop. Big whoop. There were a couple of takeaways that I had in that Pittsburgh-Washington game. There were a couple of them. And The only thing that I can tell you right now, Pittsburgh is going to be in a lot of trouble. They're going to be in a lot of trouble in the last couple of performances. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the last couple of weeks Pittsburgh has played. That's got them to this point. You know what's interesting? And they've got a lot of really good offensive weapons. The Rooney family has been known for wide receivers. Okay, they got exposed this week. Absolutely, Butcher's Block, our good friend Bobby there. And, of course, what's going on, Gangrene David, one of our really good Jets content creators here on the network. Definitely like and subscribe and give them a follow. They got exposed. And here's the other part, though, too. They could not run the football. But here's a takeaway. You know what the Pittsburgh Steelers lead the NFL in? Drop passes. They lead the league in drop passes. Isn't that interesting? Even if you got guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, and Chase Claypool. Isn't that very interesting? Because part of it is Big Ben either overthrowing or they just can't seem to keep the ball in their hands, or they can't really generate the offenses that easily. And then the worst part is they can't run the football. Their average is literally like less than 4 yards per carry. Less than 4 yards per carry on each of their plays. That's not good. That's telling you that in some of these rush defenses, and you saw that in Washington, they shut down the run. They forced a lot of pressure on Big Ben. Big Ben then throws a couple mistakes, and Pittsburgh got exposed. And to a defense who, by the way, kudos to Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio. They've worked this thing out beautifully. Montez Sweat, Chase Young, Fuller, John Bostic. These guys are very impactful in the defense, and I'm very excited to see what the future holds for Washington. They needed something like this. But the problem now with Pittsburgh, and mind you, I just started talking about Cleveland and how Cleveland played this past week against Tennessee. That was a playoff game. They looked hungry, they looked hype, and they're ready to play. I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be I really don't think they're going to be prepared for that. I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be very prepared for that. And mind you, they lost a couple guys. They lost Bud Dupree. They lost Devin Bush. It's questionable about Joe Hayden because he was limping a little bit on the field. Hopefully he'll be fine. But they are losing some guys, and they're losing them at the wrong time, of football. Because by December, January, these are the important weeks of football. And you've got to stay consistent, and you've got to stay competitive. And you got to stay healthy. And so right now, Pittsburgh looks exposed. And at this point, right now, if they're playing Cleveland that next week, there's a W for Cleveland. Their offense, they can't seem to stop the runs. You know how many times I saw J.D. McKissick spreading himself all throughout the field? Yards after catch. Pittsburgh doesn't look prepared. And I don't think they're going to be prepared against Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. And I don't think they're going to be prepared when Myles Garrett and a bunch of these guys, Olivier Vernon, and a lot of big time defensive pieces. They cannot handle these big-time rushes when it comes to defense. That offensive line, I don't even think they're going to be prepared for it. And Big Ben is not going to look like himself. I'm just throwing a lot of facts from here because this is not good if I'm Pittsburgh and I need to shape this up. I seriously need to shape this up. Time now for the hot press. So, got a lot of interesting news here in the around the league. And we've also just ended up getting news here in college football. So it looks like that Ohio State, from what I'm being told in the sources in the Big 12 or in the Big 10, that they're limiting the games again due to COVID, but it looks as though Ohio State, it'll turn into a finale after the ruled adjustment. So that means that Ohio State is going to end up playing against Northwestern. Really? This is the reason why Big Ten needs another program that's going to be competitive in this conference. I keep pushing for Notre Dame because independent conferences, I just feel like with Notre Dame against Ohio State, if I see that twice a year, it'd be awesome. What's going on, Lewis Ocean? What's happening? And I just feel like Notre Dame could keep up with that competition. Don't get me started with Jim Harbaugh and Michigan. It looks to be over. Jim Harbaugh is not looking great in his position. His position is up in jeopardy. There's a lot to be talked about and a lot to be said with Michigan moving forward. But in this case, it's going to be interesting. But sources have been told that the Houston Rockets shooting guard James Harden, he's going to need 6 straight negative tests after he just showed back up in Houston after being in Atlanta and in Vegas and a bunch of different places. He was out in nightclubs. He was out in parties. So James Harden now, he's very much, now he's got to end up getting these negative tests in order to get back with the team. And I've just been saying this. He should have gotten back. He should have gotten back a lot sooner. Practice with the team. James Harden is very much in the air. I don't know what is going to be his fate in the next couple of weeks. Right now, more rumors are buzzing about the Philadelphia 76ers inquiring about James Harden. I haven't heard any more from Brooklyn, but there are a couple of other different teams that are out there unknown that are inquiring about James Harden. But right now, I mean, if you're Houston, this could be bad. This could be very, very bad because you're trying to protect your future. And when James Harden, listen, I love him as a scorer. He's not a number one, but Houston's got to figure this thing out. But if you thought bringing in John Wall was any better, think again. Absolutely think again. So here's an interesting story from here. So apparently retired power forward and center Pau Gasol, after seeing the recent move of his brother Marc Gasol moving on from the Toronto Raptors to go to the Los Angeles Lakers for a little bit of bucks, Pau now is eyeing a return to the Lakers after all these years. It's going to be interesting. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He wasn't even retired. What am I thinking? He was playing a little bit with Milwaukee. But Pau Gasol is already up in years. He's already up in years. I loved watching the time in 2010 and in 2011. But I just feel like, that's what's going to be interesting about this. I think Marc Gasol is a good player. I think he's kind of turned more into a role player than as a starter, to be honest. But bringing in Pau, I don't understand the point of it. I get it if it's just another role player, but you're getting in more veterans. They're supposed to get younger. That was the reason why they got Montrezl Harrell. They've got Dennis Schroeder. They got really good young role players to develop them. But if bringing in Pau, and listen, I understand with having to play alongside his brother, they haven't done that since Memphis days. But I don't understand this. This is why that I'm just like, okay, but I'm not sure. But so, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles finally, as I'm going to end up taking, I'm going to end up talking a little bit about this. But Eagles is Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey. They're supporting the Carson Wentz benching situation and what has happened now with the Philadelphia Eagles. They're a mess. They are a mess. And last week against the Green Bay Packers, they got dominated. They got dominated by Aaron Rodgers. We already know how great Aaron Rodgers has been playing all throughout these last couple of weeks and throughout this year. But Philadelphia needs to figure this thing out. So they're benching Carson Wentz. He's now going to be the expensive backup in the league. And Jalen Hurts is getting the start for next week's matchup. And if this is what Philadelphia is trying to do to get more juice in the organization somehow, hopefully this works. I mean, I watched Jalen Hurts in a couple of highlights. Give it a try. Give it a try. If he actually works out with the Eagles, I think there's gonna be a lot of conversations. I'm gonna dig more in depth with it here in just a second, but this is gonna be interesting. This is gonna be very, very interesting for the next couple of weeks. I'm sure this is probably going to spark a fire to Carson Wentz, but only time will tell from here. All right, so that was your hot press. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let's just go ahead and explain this situation with Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is a mess. I get it. And right now, things are not going their way. I mean, think about it. They're playing in a division where, you got Dallas, who's a complete tire fire. And then you got the Giants and you've got Washington, who are very, very competitive up to this point. I'm not sure exactly how Philadelphia is going to really manage this, but I very much hope they manage this well. It's going to be interesting to see because, listen, Jalen Hurts all throughout college, he was a guy who played in two different colleges. Played in Alabama, he gets benched for Tua and then moves and transfers to Oklahoma with an offensive genius mind in Lincoln Riley, and he's got best of both worlds. He's been in Saban's world, he's been in Riley's world, and now, we're here in Philadelphia and we're not sure how this situation is going to pan out. So my takeaway with the Philadelphia Eagles, they've got a serious decision to make. I understand injuries have not helped, and it's really hurt their offensive line. It's hurt their offensive weapons. Nothing seems to go right with Philadelphia. But Carson Wentz, after paying him that much money, if he's not on the roster next year, they're going to have to eat up that $59 million cap hit. That's what's going to happen for Philadelphia. It's costly. So this is my thing, and I've been pushing for this. Because if you go and you trade Carson Wentz, the only thing you can really fit in the bill is draft picks. You really got to fit in the draft picks. You got to end up filling in a little bit of like that consideration, that cash consideration and something, because you're just hoping that they at least catch either half the salary, if not a little more. And maybe that'll save Philadelphia some time. But there are two places I can see Carson Wentz. I've been saying about this in the previous episode. I see him playing with the Denver Broncos. Listen, I like Drew Lock, but right now he's playing like he's the fourth best quarterback in the AFC West. Okay, he's a good kid, but he's not that impressive. Okay, fourth quarter comebacks. If you're only good for fourth quarters, you're not going to make it in this league. Okay, let's not derail ourselves from Brady, from Derek Carr, from a lot of these quarterbacks. Let's not derail ourselves from there. Okay, you've got to be solid for all four quarters and be strategic about it. Why do you think Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they work the way they do? Why do you think Derek Carr and John Gruden, when it comes to the Raiders, there are times where either in the first or second quarter, Derek Carr is going to put up the numbers, he's going to execute, and hoping by the second half of football, he's reserving that fourth quarter as being clutch and as being a guy that's going to keep the momentum on the Raiders side. And then you have Justin Herbert, who's having an unbelievable rookie season. It's unfortunate with the coaching staff that he has, but the kid is ridiculous. He's got an arm. He's smart. He's talented. You're never going to see another Justin Herbert in this league again. Much like you're never going to see a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, none of that. You're never going to see it again. And then there's Drew Lock, number 4. So I feel like Denver could very much use a quarterback who I think is accurate. And they've got a better offensive line than what Philadelphia is coping with. And I think he'll be better protected in the pocket. He's got weapons. Hopefully by next year, you'll have Cortland Sutton back. You'll have Jerry Jeudy in his second year. You've got Noah Fant. You've got Hamilton. You got Hamler. You've got a bunch of weapons. And you've got Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, who I don't know how that running back tandem will be for next year, but it'll be interesting. He's got some weapons. Denver, I think, is an interesting fit. And John Elway's got to make a splash at this. And then second, smartest general manager in the NFL, Chris Ballard. Okay. You don't think he might put his chips into going and getting a quarterback? Mind you, he spent $25 million on a quarterback who's just getting old. He's just getting old. Phillip Rivers. There's not much river flow, and on that stream, there's not. It's droughting. And it happens. But if Chris Ballard wants to do this right, because, listen, he's a smart mind. He's got so many different options. I mean, you could risk going and getting yourself a quarterback in the draft, but what is that going to do? I mean, and you have to think about other takeaways. Frank Reich is there in Indianapolis. The only way Carson Wentz got the MVP version of himself was through Frank Reich. And he knows all of his strengths. He knows all of his struggles, knows exactly his accuracies and his inaccuracies and his decision-making as a quarterback. This could work. And the offensive line has continuously been top 10 in the league. Quinn Nelson and so many others. And you're also talking about the number 1 defense in the NFL. Darius Leonard, DeForest Buckner. God, there is a lot of talent in Indianapolis. And by the way, here's where I got to talk about the weapons. Michael Pittman Jr., T.Y. Hilton, Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack maybe, Jonathan Taylor. Indy's got some weapons. And if they go and Chris Ballard inquires about acquiring Carson Wentz, and I think Philadelphia, if they throw in a 4th round pick or so to fill in the deal, because they're going to need to inquire some draft picks. I feel like Indianapolis has shaped the team right where it needs to be. And if you add in Carson Wentz in the middle of this mix, and Frank Reich, I'm sure will help him rebound. He'll have a better opportunity. And if you're Philadelphia and you're going to trust your gut with Jalen Hurts and get a bunch of draft picks, set this tone right, maybe you might save your future of this franchise. Because right now they are so confused. They are so befuddled. I don't know. I mean, at this point, Philadelphia, they've got a serious decision to make. But this is something that I'm just like, I'm not going to draw away. Coming up next, of course, what I've got on the bottom of the hour, I'll have my top 5 winners and losers of Week 13. I'm gonna love doing this one, and this is kind of this is one of my favorite segments here when we wrap up, a week of the NFL. I'll have my takeaways. Now, remember, these winners and losers are based upon performances. So, regardless of win or losses, these are takeaways from a bunch of these teams. So even if I got one that a team lost, but their performance was great, I may put them in there. I may put them in that category. Or if some of them won, but yet their performance was not that good, they might go down. So understand it. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be really fun. So you don't want to end up missing that. That's coming up next here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. So for all of you fantasy champions far and wide, as of course you're watching this show from here. You love winning money and you love playing sports, even esports as well. Well, there's the place for you that you can do both. You can win money while playing. Thrive Fantasy is what it's called. Thrive Fantasy has a bunch of different pool plays and matchups on a weekly basis. And you can win pool plays up to 15 grand. That's all major sports. That's esports. That's everything. Anything you can think of, they've got it there. And when you go online or you download the app and you sign up today, use promo code SS Network. That is short for Spotlight Sports Network. When you put in your deposit of $20, Thrive Fantasy promises to match it $50 in your first play. So sign up, put in your deposit, $20, match it to 50, have some fun with it, and let's win some hard-earned cash. Go to thrivefantasy.com. That's promo code SS Network. Thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network.
What's up, fantasy champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now, with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network.
So, this week has been really, really interesting. I've enjoyed this week. There's a lot of takeaways that I've had here in the NFL. But I want to shift gears real fast before we end up going into my top 5 winners and losers of week 13. Okay, first and foremost, I want to talk about this. College football, I'll be honest with every single one of you. College football, I think, has been a dud this year. You might as well put an asterisk for this year because everybody's just so surprised. Jake, Cincinnati's up in the conversation, and then you got, you got BYU in the conversation. They look like a really good football team. They're undefeated. There's so much surprises of a lot of different programs all throughout this year. And mind you, if COVID didn't happen, we would not be having a college football season like we are having right now. And we wouldn't be having topics of discussions like this. A lot of us already know. When it comes to stuff like this. The programs that we know that are the top tier best: Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Florida right now is looking really, really good. And there's still a bunch of, then there's middle of the pack. There's middle of the pack teams that are there. Texas A&M, there's LSU, there's Auburn, there's Oklahoma, there's a bunch of different teams out there. And when I'm hearing about teams like BYU and Indiana and even Cincinnati, understand that if we did not have COVID happen, we probably wouldn't have a season like this. The season would be like how it is. Alabama would continuously be ranked top 5 in the programs, in the AP polls. Clemson would still be competitive with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Ohio State. This is why that I have pushed for a lot of different programs when it comes to balancing college football. I just feel like there's an awful lot of nonsense. There's an awful lot of nonsense surrounding college football lately. And listen, it's not against the programs. I'm not saying that. But understand something. We have not heard so much of BYU. Zach Wilson, I love the kid. But we haven't heard a lot of BYU. I know the program's getting better. But to be perfectly clear, as a top-tier program, you really want BYU taking on Alabama, Clemson. Come on, let's be real. Cincinnati, the same thing. You really think they can go toe-to-toe against Alabama? Give me a break. There's no way. Look, Florida has very much improved their program. They've improved their recruitments, and I think they've been recruiting really good kids. But college football, to me, it seemed like it was a complete dud this year. I'm not saying that every program was just bad. I think there were been a lot of different adjustments and changes. But understand, when it comes to these top-tier programs, and if you really think Indiana can go toe-to-toe with Ohio State, or they can go toe-to-toe with Alabama or Clemson or any one of these top-tier schools, you're out of your mind. Okay? They're really good programs, not denying it. I think they've done a very good job this year, especially taking advantage with the time that we're in. But let's be honest. Let's be honest with this. And I still do believe that two programs, BYU and Notre Dame, two conferences I have in mind. Notre Dame, I feel like, would be a perfect fit for Big Ten. Who doesn't want to see them match up with Ohio State every year? That's championship worthy, not Northwestern. Respectfully, I wouldn't even see this. I wouldn't even see it as a championship. I'm sorry. And if BYU wants to be in the map, join the Pac-12. It's another really good conference. Oregon, USC, Stanford, they all could use competition. And by the way, that'll put you on the map. That'll put you straight smack dab on the map. No more of this independent crap. I think BYU would be perfect for the Pac-12. I really, really do. All right, so my best for last here. And I really looked at it this year. I really looked at it this week. I think it's very, very interesting. But there were a bunch of takeaways. So I've got my top 5 winners and I've got my top 5 losers of week 13. And it's going to be very interesting. I think you guys are definitely going to love it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll this thing up, shall we?
It's the top 5 winners and losers of the NFL according to Jake. Number 5.
All right, so my number 5 team that I think has been really, really impressive is the Washington football team. They are winners, in my opinion. They did everything right against a Pittsburgh team that can't run the football well. They're dropping passes. They're just looking bad. And they exposed them this week. Montez Sweat, Chase Young, John Bostic, and this defense is so promising under Ron Rivera. I'm loving it. I'm loving every single part of it. I think they're going to be very, very competitive when they get everything right on offense, because I still do think they need to go and get a quarterback. I don't think you're going to trust and rely on Alex Smith the whole time. He's getting old, and we never thought we'd see a Cinderella story like this, but still, I think Washington did really, really good. Number 4 is the New York Giants. This team is just continuously getting better and better and better every week. And kudos to Joe Judge. This team has looked really, really good. The defense has gotten stronger. Dexter Lawrence, Blake Martinez, a takeaway machine at linebacker. I'm not sure how Green Bay even let him slip. But my God, he is looking really good. And Joe Judge is working this thing out right. By the way, for all Giants fans, Daniel Jones is back for this next week. They're going to be even better. If they cut down the amount of times he coughs up the football on fumbles, I promise you, the Giants are going to be a much better team in the NFC East. And the only team that's going to give them competition is Washington. I'm sorry, Philadelphia and Dallas, to burst your bubble, but I'm just being honest with you. This is the opportunity for the Giants in Washington to take advantage of it. Number 3 is definitely the LA Rams. And listen, a lot of people, this is the takeaway. I've been saying this all season long. When Jared Goff is sacked once or less, he's got a winning record of 30 plus wins since being a starter in 2016. This kid is unbelievable. And Sean McVay has worked it well. This defense also with Jalen Ramsey, Michael Brockers, and Aaron Donald, and there are a bunch of different pieces there. They have worked this out. Remind you, they're in a tough division in the NFC West. Okay, you're dealing with Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray and the 49ers defense every year, twice. This team's looking really, really good. I cannot deny it. I really, really cannot deny it. I think they've looked like a much better team. This could be a threat in the playoffs, but after this past week's win, and they made Kyler Murray so uncomfortable. Kyler is struggling right now. I love Arizona, but their offensive line is still not the best. They've got to figure this out. But the Rams, they're very much worthy of number 3, in my opinion. Number 2 is definitely the team in the AFC North that is really making a huge adjustment, and that is the Cleveland Browns. I loved what I saw out of Baker Mayfield, and I loved how Kevin Stefanski adjusted in the game. They came out with some serious fire, 41 points. Now, granted, the defense needs to tighten up a little more. They gave up points to Tennessee, and it's understandable. But they do look like a legit playoff team. They may win one playoff. Let's just start there. I think Cleveland is going to be an absolute threat in the playoffs in the AFC. But that performance on the run and the performance in the air with Baker Mayfield, if I get Baker Mayfield in the next 4 weeks with a performance like that, Cleveland's going to be very, very interesting. But again, I think Kevin Stefanski, he deserves the nomination. I'm giving him the nomination of Coach of the Year this year. I think he very much deserved it. With a COVID strike like this, no OTAs, no preseason, no practices, he has done very well with this team. All right, the number 1 team in the AFC East. I really am loving what I'm seeing out of Buffalo this year. I mean, Josh Allen this past week put up Mahomes-like numbers. 4 touchdowns, no picks against San Francisco, who I understand they're banged up. But Buffalo, man, they are very interesting, and they are going to be tough to watch. Mind you, I said Josh Allen could win 2 playoff games. Last year, he lost the playoffs to Deshaun Watson and a Houston Texans team that was just, it looked like the play was sloppy. I don't know what Josh Allen was thinking as far as his judgment call as a quarterback, but he looks 10 times better. He is a better NFL quarterback than he was as a college quarterback, and it is showing, and his numbers are tripling than where they are. He's putting MVP caliber numbers. I think this Stephon Diggs trade has very much worked because they have a deep ball receiver. So Buffalo's looking really, really good. So I've got Washington, the Giants, the Rams, the Browns, and the Bills as my top 5 winners of Week 13. Now let's take a look at the losers. All right, so my number 5 team, and they very much deserve to be in the losers rank, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, come on, man. You're 11-1. You're not playing like it. The run is lower than 4 yards per carry. They've dropped the ball more than 20 times. They lead the NFL in drop passes. This offense, you know who used to play like this? Last year's New England Patriots. And they've got a bunch of talent. They've got Chase Claypool. They got Juju Smith-Schuster. But this offense, man, they got to tidy this up. I understand they suffered injuries. Bud Dupree, Devin Bush. Hopefully Joe Hayden comes back healthy. But that was not good. That was not a good performance against Washington. Washington exposed Pittsburgh in a big way. All right, number 4 is the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, looking at what happened with Russ and how they played against the Giants upset Seattle in a big way. And Seattle has not looked like themselves. I don't understand it. I thought they fixed their pass rush with Carlos Dunlap, and then you got Jamal Adams in the defense. This team, with Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, there's no way. And their running back situation with Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde, I don't know. I don't understand what happened. And now it's letting them know the Giants are getting better. They are looking like a team that could be a threat in the NFC. And who knows what may happen in the next couple of weeks. But Russ got cooked. And who knows what may happen with Seattle in the next couple of weeks. But I better see them clean this up and clean this up quick. All right, number 3 is the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, good Lord, man. They looked horrible. This even though they looked horrible all season long, Jerry Jones is not loving it. And of course, he's not really kind of taking up the accountability as all of us would hope. But right now, the Cowboys are just looking like a complete tire fire. Dak injury has definitely hurt them, but at the same time, they don't have great players surrounding them. They really, really don't. Did you ever notice that? Jalen Smith is good. Leighton Vander Esch is good. DeMarcus Lawrence is good, but there's no great players in this roster. Name me one. I'm not seeing it. And it's unfortunate for the Cowboys, but they need to fix this thing. I mean, Mike McCarthy is so outdated and so much more. And you talk about Mike Nolan as well. This is not good. All right, the Philadelphia Eagles are very much number 2. I mean, this is now another mess. We're just getting messier and messier by the time we get from 3 to 2 to 1. Philadelphia's got an absolute mess, and it is hurting them. No pun intended. But Carson Wentz, if you want to talk about elf on a shelf, talk about Wentz on a bench. I mean, this is not good for Philadelphia. Carson Wentz sacked a bunch of times on a banged-up offensive line and a banged-up offensive weaponry. This is bad. This is bad. And now Jalen Hurts is starting next week. And you better hope that Jalen Hurts can be a spark. I'm sure he can be. But it'll only determine on how Doug Peterson is really going to play this out. But again, this is a mess. But if you think this is bad, wait till you see exactly what I've got at number 1. So number 1 is definitely the messiest of all messes, and that is the LA Chargers. They are very much the losers here in this week. This is terrible performance. This is absolutely terrible. Here's the takeaway you have to know about the Chargers. They are, and I found this out because them and the Rams, okay, both Los Angeles teams, they are top 10 in 2 categories. They are top 10 in offense and top 10 in defense. But here's the difference. The Rams are first in the NFC West, and the Chargers are last. It has a lot to do with conservative coaching. Anthony Lynn, they're going to roll with him with the rest of the season until the season is over. But Bill Belichick completely outcoached them. They didn't score a single point, not a touchdown, not a field goal. This is terrible. And talking about an offense with an awful lot of potential, and I love Justin Herbert. He's got a huge, bright future amongst them, but he deserves so much better than this. And, I mean, this is where you have to do a complete clean sweep. Listen, I've heard all throughout media and sources, they're saying that they're trying to target Josh McDaniels. Hello, head coach. No more of this coordinator crap, because this is the reason why, once again, Dean Spanos likes to be cheap. No more of that. Spend some money, get a head coach. I have no time for coordinators this year. I have absolutely no time for coordinators. And here's the thing. They have an awful lot of free agents, both restricted, unrestricted, by next year. And this is going to hurt. This is very much going to hurt this team. And this is why the Chargers need to have a head coach. Enough said. So there you go. My top 5 winners and losers for this week of week 13. You've got Washington at 5, Giants at 4, Rams at 3, Browns at 2, Bills at 1 as my winners. And the losers, number 5 is the Steelers, 4 is the Seahawks, the Cowboys at 3, Eagles at 2, and the Chargers standing alone at number 1. I mean, I just truly think that this is understandable. And again, these are all based off of the performances throughout the week. It is bad. But there's some flip side. I think the Bills are capable of winning 2 playoff games. I think Baker Mayfield is capable of winning a playoff game. But who knows what week 14 is going to bring up. But there is going to be some very interesting stuff. So thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it, guys. Hope you guys have a great night. I will have my prime prediction up for Thursday night in my social media, so stay tuned for the stories and so much more. I will have more of that information coming up. But man, this has been a heck of a week. I can't wait to see exactly what week 14 is going to bring. And also, by the way, I'm going to be featured on. There's going to be a new show on the Spotlight Sports Network on Saturdays. I'm going to be co-hosting with a really good friend of mine. His name's Mike. They call him Mike on the mic. And I'm going to be co-hosting for a podcast show. It's going to be called High Voltage Chargers Talk. And for all of my diehard Bolt fam, Bolt gang up out there, you guys definitely don't want to end up missing that. We're going to do that Saturdays at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Listen in, tune in. It's going to be a lot of fun. And finally, we'll have some Chargers content up out there. So have a great night. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And I will see you guys Saturday morning, 7 p.m. Pacific or 7 a.m. Pacific, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care of yourselves, guys.